Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are just waiting for a few minutes so that all our participants can join. A very good morning to all of you. Dear esteemed guests, members of the space industry, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the ISpA Expert Talk SpaceTech webinar, first version organized by the Indian Space Association. It gives me great privilege to welcome all of you to this prestigious web series where we have gathered today to discuss and deliberate on one of the most significant policy frameworks which would play a significant role in the growth of the Indian space sector. The policy that we're talking about is the Defense Acquisition Procedure, or DAP 2020, and its latest amendments, which have been effected a few months back. As many of you would be aware, the Defense Space Initiative, or the Defense Space Innovation Challenges that were launched by the MOD were triggered by the Indian Space Association during its interactions with the former Defense Secretary, Dr. Ajay Kumar, on the 25th of May last year. After that, a series of deliberations followed at the MOD, wherein ISpA was able to convince the senior leadership to come out with a specific defense space innovation program for the Indian private industry. And with the close coordination between ISpA, the MOD, the three services, Defense Space Agency, and the headquarter IDS, we were able to curate a full stack defense space innovation program, which was finally launched by the Honorable Prime Minister on the 19th of October 2022. This is the first and the only program existing till date where any ministry of the government of India has actually put a stake in terms of monetary contributions to support our defense space innovation program. The Indian space industry today stands at an inflection point, poised for an unprecedented growth and innovation, with the government's visionary decision to open up the sector for private space participation. We are witnessing a paradigm shift in the way space technology is being perceived and harnessed in our country, and this shift has ushered in a new era of collaboration. Today we have Mr. Bharat Simha from the Azista BST to shed light on the intricacies of the DAP 2020 and its latest amendments. Bharat has been a key crusader of the space industry and is an prominent spacecraft engineer and a distinguished alumnus of the Moscow Aviation Institute. He contributes to the new space movement in India and is notable particularly through his involvement in various turnkey space system projects. He's a strong advocate for Make in India and Atma-Nirbhar Bharat initiatives, promoting self-reliance and indigenous development in the aerospace sector. His work exemplifies the spirit of innovation and independence, crucial for India's advancements in the space technology. The webinar today would present an excellent opportunity for us to gain insights into the policy nuances and understand its implications and discuss potential areas for further enhancements. As we navigate the complexities of this evolving landscape, it is crucial that we collaborate, share knowledge, and collectively shape the future of India's space endeavors. It is only through an open dialogue and constructive discourse that we can ensure that our space industry remains at the forefront of innovation while contributing to nation's security, economic growth, and technological progress. To our audience, I encourage you to actively participate, ask questions after the presentation is over, and engage in fruitful discussions. Your involvement and feedback are invaluable in shaping the discourse and contributing to growth of India's space industry. May I also request you to please keep your pointers ready, and you can engage with us and send your recommendations should there be any for improvements and enhancements in the defense acquisition procedure 2020. I'm given to understand that the next version will be due very soon. So your contributions in making suggestions would be handy, and we intend to collate all the inputs we receive and then send to MOD for necessary action. Thank you all for your presence, and I wish you a productive and insightful webinar. Bharat, the controls are now with you. You may please share your presentation and take charge.
Thank you, sir. Can I confirm that my screen is visible?
But
Hello?
you need to get into the slide mode. Right now, it is still in the different mode.
Now it should be good enough.
Yeah. Yes, now it is fine. You got controls. Please take over.
Yeah. Good morning to all my industry colleagues, to the Indian Space Association. Particularly, my special thanks to Wing Commander Satyam Kushwaha for giving me an opportunity to present on the DAP 2020 and the latest amendments by the Defense Acquisition Council. I hope that I will be able to provide the best possible insights and give clarifications wherever and whenever possible. Thank you. And now I'll start my presentation. This is particularly to the DAP amendments, which we have received via acquisition wing of the MOD. I would like to note one point, like all these procurement cases right now, which we are discussing, are up to the case of 250 crores. And if there is an increase beyond more than 250 crores, it would be under the, it would need certain permissions from the Defense Acquisition Council TAC or the respective competent authorities. So the first, I would like to discuss about various cases where in India, where we have the development-based procurement, which is, I believe, one of the best policies that has been developed recently. And I have some starter slides so that for all the industry colleagues who are not aware of these procedures might be able to understand what we are going to talk about. So we have the Defense Innovation Organization under the MOD, which has three schemes, particularly known as IDEX, IDEX Prime, and Aditi. Each of the scheme giving a cumulative funding of 1.5 crore, 10 crore, and 25 crores, respectively. And the development agency, which would be selected, would be asked to put up around 50% or the matching contribution, of which the DOO is investing. Then you have the DRDO, which has the Technology Development Fund. Again, could range from somewhere from 10 crores to 50 crores. Then you have the service headquarters-led procurement for large capital case procurements. You have the Make Ones, you have a Make Two, and the Make Three. The Make One particularly talks about more complex capital procurements, where it is capital extensive, which can go beyond 100 crores. And you have the MOD or the ministry or the government of India would be funding 70% of the program, and the rest 30% would be funded by the development agency, which upon successful completion, the development agency is rewarded with the certain minimum order quantity based orders or repetitive orders. Then you have the Make Two, where it is slightly less complex projects, usually within the belt of within 100 crores. The MOD would be having around 20 to 30% of the funding in this sort of program. The rest is to be borne by the development agency. Then you have the Make Three, where the funding is very similar to Make Two. The procedure is also similar to Make Two. The only difference is that here we are inviting foreign players to come and collaborate with our industry and have manufacturing facilities in India for the initial setup, and later they are requested to move in the technology and the capabilities to their partner, to the industrial partner, the Indian industrial partner. So that is a very small summary of what different type of cases that we are dealing with. Then I would like to also throw some light. I would like to briefly go through over the Make One procedure. Uh, Many of them always hear these terms and they do not really know what we are going to talk about. So I thought it might be good enough to just to highlight some of these abbreviations, so all of us would be comfortable when we go and talk with our potential service headquarters in the future. Uh, so I'll just use the point. Yeah. So the first step is approval in principle. What happens here is you have the Defense Procurement Board, you have the service headquarters, that is the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Whenever I mean service headquarters, it relates to mostly to these agencies. And they have an annual acquisition plan, and they have a decadal acquisition plan, and they have a 5-year procurement plan. They have different various plans for procurement. So in their plans, they would be identifying some niche areas, some areas where some indigenization is required, where some development is required, where some R&D is required. So all these new developments are taken to a next stage by going to the Defense Procurement Board and stating that, we have a requirement for a certain technology. Let's say today some satellite X, and the satellite X is to be developed. Then that they would be presenting the case to the Defense to the DefSec office, where where the service headquarters would be getting the approval in principle. Post that, once the SHQ gets the approval in principle, they have the legal position to pursue the project under one of the Make categories. Particularly in this slide, we are talking about Make One. In the Make One, the service headquarters would be setting up a project facilitation team. It would be consisting of various experts within the SHQ, from the sister branches, from the MOD, sometimes even the representatives of industrial bodies, and academia experts from ISRO, DRDO, NAL, etc. All these agencies. Once the PFT is set up, they would be starting to constitute the planning consultations, checking the feasibility on how it could be done, what could be done, what cannot be done, how it could be executed. And then they would, right now in the present cases, they reach, the industry is going in hand along with the service headquarters for doing the feasibility studies. Hello. Yeah. So for doing the feasibility studies, and upon the completion of feasibility studies, they all go on to set up their requirements. What are the requirements of that particular service? And these are known only as preliminary service qualitative requirements. Many of you must have heard the term PSQRs when dealing with our SHQs on make projects or other IDEX projects. Uh, Let me tell you, I would like to add in some personal experience here. Usually, many of us would be of the thought that feasibility studies should be done by the SHQs in a very fast and steady manner, which is ideal, but it's not really possible in the present scenario, given the limitations they have, the work burden and so on. So it's always upon us, on the industry, to develop our own feasibility studies depending on the project, so that the respective officers or the PFT could be able to take decisions and also complete their own feasibility studies on what could be done with the project. Once the PSQRs are realized, they would be getting the accord for acceptance of necessity. This is basically the go-ahead for the release of expression of interest and for the procurement processes. Sometimes you must have also heard of the document known as PDD, that is the project definition document. This would be developed by the PFT. Here they would be requiring your details like, for example, what is the indigenous content? What is the minimum order quantity? What is the tentative budget? What are your company statutory details, such as your tax returns, your tax filings, your credit scores, uh, your ownership details, so on and so on. Then you have the issue of expression of interest, where the expression of interest is released to the potential DAs. I would say mostly put in the public domain, that is the Make in India Defense website. And the PFT would also realize a detailed project report. So in the detailed project report, that's the format, they would be asking the DAs to fill up this format accordingly so they can process the case further. Once the UI is released and the potential development agencies, that is the DAs, submitted, they're evaluated based on financial categories, financial gates, the technical gates, and the detailed project report by the Defense Acquisition Council, or you can call it the Secretary of Defense Procurement. Post that, they would be going for a limited commercial offer, a limited RFP for solicitation of a commercial offer as well as for the prototype development. Here, the commercial offer, when they say commercial offer here, they are talking about the latter procurement phase, where basically the development agency would be indicating that there are set number of MOQs, and for these MOQs, this is the tentative budget and this is the tentative price. So that is a sort of approval, that is a sort of information that we are sharing with them. Post the selection of the development agencies by the Defense Procurement Board, everyone has to go through the CFA and get the project sanction orders from their respective service headquarters. Then the actual technical gamut begins, where the DA is required to design and develop the prototype. Once the design and development of the prototype is completed, we will be going for the field evaluation trials. Okay. But in the field evaluation trials, it's not suitable for all type of programs. For example, you're talking about a submarine. This is exempted from FET. You're talking about a spacecraft. It is exempted from an FET. So some people do have doubts, like, if I have such sort of program, then how I'm going to do FET? It would be mostly, lab-based calibration, test, development of qualification models, engineering models, evaluating the test results which are obtained in the labs or in the simulated environment. Those will be used for evaluation during the trial phase. So while this is going on, you also have your commercial offers being revised and solicited by the MOD for acquisition, and they undergo a staff evaluation. Then you have another round of commercial negotiations with the MOD representatives, or sometimes also known as the contract negotiation committee. Uh, Many veterans in the industry have dealt with CNCs in the past, and we have to deal with it here again. Post that, we have an award of contract. Till this phase, if someone have questions in in this aspect, or we could take them, then again continue with the other aspect of make amendments. Ashish, I cannot see the chat or something. If someone has questions, then we can address them, or else we can continue.
No questions as of now.
Okay, okay. Then I thought I should also throw some light on.
Got a question.
Yes.
Mr. Aryan Mohindru asks, can you please highlight the role of competent financial authority?
Oh, the CFA. I will address this question in the further slides. Basically, this authority is established. One is for benchmarking the price. One is for the the approval of the whatever the benchmarking committee has said. So whatever the price is set up, whatever the cost is set up, this is to be approved by the CFA. Who is the CFA? The CFA could, depending on the size of the budget, it could be either the army, the general of the army, or the chief or the vice chiefs. Or if it is beyond their budget, it can go up to the defense secretary. Beyond different secretaries' budget, it can also go up to the ministerial level. That is, you would need approval from the financial ministry and defense ministry. Beyond that, it would go on to the CCS. That is the cabinet committee for security and such approvals. There is a dedicated page on that, on who is the CFA and who could be the CFA for the which budget limit. This is all highlighted in the DAP book. Yeah. Then you have the enhance. I hope I've answered that question. And yeah, then you have the enhanced performance parameters. Why I'm highlighting this is that, I mean, whenever I talk to a lot of my industrial colleagues and they are like, they're not aware of this. Initially, when I was discussing with SHQs on certain items, even I was not aware of this. So I thought I should put it ahead. So usually this is, the EPP is not mandatory, but it is an optional challenge to deal with. So many times, let's say you have I come from space background, so it's much easier to give examples from there. So the challenge is to develop a 100 kg satellite. But if you could develop a satellite of 80 kgs, that is of a lower mass, then you have a reward because you're innovating it further. So these sort of conditions are set up by the service headquarters or by the Defense Acquisition Council. And if they are met by the development agency, there is an additional reward. This reward usually pertains from 3% to 10% of the L1 score. This is one aspect. Certain times, the the EPP are categorized as per the project. I mean, in a spacecraft, it could be a mass. In a tank, it could be, it could be the materials. For example, we are talking about there's a lot of thrust on the indigenous materials. So it is non-mandatory, but it could be included on the EPP. And the reward for use of military materials is usually from 5% to 10% of the materials cost of whatever materials you're procuring. Let's say you're buying a special alloy from a certain country. It is not available in India. Then you have no reward. But rather you have another development agency that is trying to use an equivalent special alloy, or it has developed that same special alloy in India and is using that material, then they are beneficiary to those 10% rewards. Usually it is limited to 1% of the project cost, such reward for materials. But one could again gain a significant advantage if they could state that whatever indigenous materials they are using is of strategic nature, then they could avail higher rewards, or they could negotiate with the DSC on how they could get the better rewards. I mean, always the rewards are not actually for, putting in our bank accounts. Rather, it is for, streamlining and pushing the prototype development ahead, proving that technology exists. So that's what I mean when I meant reward. Similarly, we have the same criterion for indigenous softwares. Uh, Again, some people have the thought that when we talk about software, it is mostly like for a full stack software. It is sort of some sort of a JavaScript software, or sort of a web-based software, or general graphic user interface. No, that is one aspect, but it also includes embedded softwares. For example, you're talking about your FPGAs, you're talking about your control systems. Control systems can vary from avionics to your fire control systems in your or your weapon systems. So all these things also come under software. It is not mandatory that it comes under the sometimes it does not mandatorily come under indigenization. In those scenarios, one could always advocate to use the software under the EPP, that is the enhanced performance parameters. The last aspect is there is also an equal thrust on artificial intelligence, as stated in the chapter 1 of DAP. So one could also discuss, depending on the extent of this machine learning program, or this neural network programming, whatever you are going to use in your potential project, you could advocate for EPP depending on the complexity of the AI. Yeah. So till now, I was trying to just give a brief on make projects on various steps and some important parameters. Usually, many of our industry colleagues sometimes miss upon, sometimes they get confused upon. From here, I would like to showcase the various amendments that have recently come forth, and we were fruitful enough to receive from the Defense Acquisition Council. The first one is during the accord of AON, that is the acceptance of necessity, it is important for the service headquarters to give an indicative cost of the proposal for the ITEX or the TDF. Why it is important? It would help them to tell like how much budget are they going to allocate for this project. It's not going to be like, the development agency say, yeah, it's going to cost 50 crores, but those 50 crores is not there with the SHQ. Then we are in for some delays, I would say. So such indicative cost of the proposal would help both the officers as well as the development agency who are working on the formulation of such a program. Yes, then the next and the most important thing is the setup of the BMC, that is the benchmark model committee. It is set up so that it could help the representatives. It would be constituted with the representatives of MODs for the service headquarters, also sometimes some industrial or academic experts, to provide insights on the cost of a particular program. This BMC is now required. Before it used to be a more of a traditional approach of they would do their own survey, and they would also, how would I put it, use past costings or of similar projects to use as a benchmark. Now, they have brought in several factors, particularly innovation, risk, import advantages, which are to be accounted when recommending a particular cost to the MOD representatives or to the CNC. So what are these parameters that the benchmark model committee would be looking into? The most important thing is the IP valuation, that is important, intellectual property valuation, the functional value of the project. what's the import advantage that we are bringing in. So all these factors are also brought in another form known as IF, that is the innovation advantage factor. IF is determined on the risk. So whether it is of a low risk, high risk, moderate risk. Oh yeah. So what would be the risk? How does one again tell like whether it is high risk, low risk? It is it is initially constituted on a case-to-case basis by the services at the stage of submissions, and it is reviewed by committees before the declaration of results. So for IDEX, this particular risk categorization is done by the High Power Selection Committee, HPSC. In case of TDF, it is done by the technical committee which is set up by the DRDO. The BMC, as I have indicated in the past, also includes a representative and subject matter experts from academics and non-academic institutions. So which would help our case. It's not purely led by defense officials, but also by SMEs. So what are the guidelines? So how would one set up the price? And how would innovation factor come into play? So the benchmark.
Before
Yes.
you proceed, there are certain questions. Would you like to take them now?
I will try. Sure.
Yeah. So they're in the Q&A section, and if you can't see them, I'm happy to question.
I have to stop sharing, then I can see them.
Okay, no issue. So the first question goes, make one, there are 19 steps. And the time frame is large. How can we reduce the timelines and also make the process agile? It's by Mr. Krishna.
Agile. Yes, it is indeed a problem. There are a lot of steps given the size of the procurement. From my experience, whatever projects that we are dealing as a firm at this point of time, the only way that we could actually accelerate the projects is through working hand in hand with your MOD representative, helping them to finalize the feasibility reports, helping them to complete the PDD projects. This is one way of getting the projects done as soon as possible. And if I'm right, if I'm right, it's usually the make one process by the book last up to 1 year or more. And in the recent amendments, they were actually able to cut down a lot of evaluation times, which I would be able to highlight in the subsequent slides. Yeah, Ashish, the next one. If there's another
this
question.
stage, may I just make a comment that if any of the members have got ideas to reduce this time by suggesting a more intelligent approach, we'll be most happy to receive those suggestions at ISpA. Thank you. Bharat, you got controls.
Thank you, sir. Ashish, any other question?
Yes. The next question is, when will EPP be formulated? Is it at the PSQR stage or SQR stage?
The Defense Procurement Board. Ashish, is it the DPB?
EPP.
And the enhanced performance parameters.
EPP. I see. EPP. EPP usually is done at the at the feasibility study stage itself. People are for example, we are discussing a lot of depth space projects. So from my experience, they are trying to include this in the feasibility study. And what could be the EPP and what could be the general parameters and what could be the enhanced performance parameters.
Actually, it is part of the AON according process. When the approval of the project is given, EPP has to be included at that stage. Then only it is proceeded ahead.
Yes, sir, you're right. So the thing is MOD or the SHQs are trying to assess what could be EPP and what could be the general parameters, and which are being put in the SQRs and then taken to the AON. So yeah.
Yeah, Bharat, next question. How do you assess AI in the system? Any yardstick?
At this point of time, I don't have any tool set for the assessment of AI today in the DAP book. So this could be one of the recommendations that could be taken by ISpA to the respective authorities.
Presently,
another
none
question.
of the procedures AI is catered for in any of the procedures of DAP 2020. So therefore, it is one of the important aspects to be recommended to the MOD.
In the DAP book, in the first chapter, they have advocated for use of maximum AI possible in various use cases. And but again, how do they measure AI? What's the yardstick? Uh, there is no yardstick available in the procedural handbook, so one has to be developed.
Next question. Is the reward awarded based upon the total price of the material used / procured? This is by Rickard Swenson.
1 second. Regarding the materials. Oh, okay.
Can I answer?
Let me answer. So regarding the indigenous materials, so we are talking about depending on the material. For example, you're buying some composite grade materials and you're indigenizing them for the first time for a fighter jet program. This could come under the strategic program. So the reward could be negotiated by the DAC to get a higher reward percentage. And that 5 to 10%, whatever for the indigenous military materials, it is basically rewarded based on the cost of the replacement that you're doing for the foreign material.
Yeah. Next question. What happens when the indicative cost provided during A1 stage vastly differs from the commercial code provided to MOD acquisition wing during field trials before CNC?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Yeah. What happens when the indicative cost provided during A1 stage
Okay.
vastly differs from the commercial code provided to MOD during the field trials before CNC?
The own stage. Okay. First of all, like you know, who the question who asked the question, they can clarify on this. But during the feasibility studies, the MOD would be collecting the potential cost so that they could develop a certain budget and they could present the budget to the competent authorities. And if there is a change in the cost, there are procedures in the DAP handbook which tells if there is a deviation of cost of 5%, to whom it has to be raised. If it is a deviation or increase in cost by 10%, to with whom it could be raised. And there are avenues for discussion and negotiations available if there is change in the cost. But usually, you know, such discussions are not preferred as it would delay the process by huge amount of time.
प्राइवेट काम करता था पाजी बैटरी रिपेयरिंग का था बैटरी गाड़ी रिपेयरिंग पता नहीं मैं अभी तो बात हुई बस
Bharat, you may continue.
I'm getting some noise from someone else. Yeah, if you could look into that.
Yeah, they're muted now. Please continue.
Yeah. So the BMC. Yeah, coming back, the benchmark price. How it would be set up, or what is the definition of that? It is the base price into 1 plus the innovation factor. I'm sorry, it has come as 1. Sorry. The base price is usually the raw material. What is the manpower cost for the production for the defined quantities in the procurement contract, plus the design and development cost in the IDEX or TDF. So one would be having the design and development cost. So please do include that. Then the IF, how it is characterized, how we could tell, like, you know, whether it is high risk, low risk, you know, as I told you. So initially it is constituted by the DIO or by the representatives of MOD. Before completely awarding the project, they would be doing the full valuation exercise, also the innovation advantage factor calculations. As stated here for the definitions, for a value less than 60 crores, it is low. From 60 to 120 crores, it is moderate. Greater than 120 crores, it is high. This is for the IP valuation. Then the functional advantage, how well you're going to provide the services. So I'm sorry. How important is this the product? How much you can indigenize, like how strategically it is important. All these factors come into play. Domestic capability development. So if no equivalent solution available domestically, very high. I think that is very obvious. Less efficient solution available domestically. So we have an inferior grade product at this point of time. Then a new product that would bring us onto an equal foreplay with our adversaries, then it would definitely consider as a moderate capability. Similar or equivalent solution is already available. Maybe you're bringing certain innovation for mass manufacturing or to reduce the cost. Such innovation could be categorized under low. All these solutions are to be developed. Sorry. Yeah, all the solutions are to be developed indigenized by the Indian entity, both the know-how and know-why. Then the import substitution. The most important thing is substituting an equipment item or part that is under the ITAR or BAFA trade regulations. So the export regulations put up by US and European nations often. So able to bring in any part or develop any new part or component, subsystem or system that could avoid all this import procedures is definitely a significant advantage. Then sometimes we get the import, the country to allow them to bring into India, but there is a significant delay due to the procedural process. So again, providing an ease in those procedural process by having our own capability in India definitely is most welcome. There is a capability of import in India, but for example, we have issues with spares or you have issues in production. So such replacement is also calculated appropriately. I'm sorry, Ashish. Yeah.
They've been muted.
Yeah. So if the answer is no to any of these three, then it is definitely considered low. If the answer to any of these questions is yes, then it is considered a high. So you have like 4 categories where you can consider high and low. And if at least 2 out of the 4 parameters are classified as high, then the overall innovation factor for the risk would be considered high. If it is moderate, then it should have at least 1 or 2 out of the 4 parameters to be classified as moderate, and not more than 1 classified as a high. Low if none of the above conditions are met. So there is a defined innovation factor advantage on how it could be calculated, on how it could be put into the benchmarking model committee. And this benchmarking model committee, as indicated in my earlier slides, it would be passing on the calculations done via this procedure to the CNC.
Mr. Bharat, can I interject?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm General Sani, Principal Advisor to SIDM. I have to exit, so I'll just give 2 points. I take ownership of this DAP since I was ADG acquisition when it was formulated. It was my desk who was handling. Two issues.
Thank you, sir.
Important is, firstly, we require a separate chapter for aerospace. That's a start point because it is slightly different from the normal acquisition procedures. So therefore, aerospace requires a separate chapter. The second point is this issue of indigenous, materials. There is a provision for, indigenous materials and, special materials, but it has never been incorporated in any of the acquisitions. The recent amendment to DAP has mandated that, out of the total IC out of the total, 50% will be in the term of materials, components, and I think R&D, etc. So this will get catered for. But sorry, I have to exit. I am entering into another meeting. I think one of our representatives, Mr. Bharat Jain, is attending this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. So I'll continue. So yes, coming back, once the innovation factor advantage is calculated and it is categorized on whether it is high risk, low risk, or moderate risk, it cannot be changed after declaration of the results. So please be careful and have a diligent eye to make sure that whatever the category you're working upon, it is your project is in that category. They also brought in some advantages for startups, I would say mostly, to help in terms of safeguarding the advance payments. One very interesting and also I would say an important statement from MOD document is that if the startup has already invested time and money, at least 50% of the design and development cost as matching contribution, and has skin in the game to honor the procurement contract. This I would call one of the most important statements in this book because it values whether it is a startup, SME, or any other entity who has done the work, who has bled while developing new products. So please do consider this particular statement for your negotiations in the future. So if such a category is met, so the advance payment could be backed by, in the past, it's a bank guarantee or a surety bond, which again is not an easy thing for many startups. Now they also have a chance for the startups or SMEs to mortgage a proportionality of their proportional rights of their intellectual property, or else have a combination. You could have like some of it in bond, some of it as a mortgage of your IP rights. At the end of the day, you're only mortgaging your IP rights to MOD, so you can stay secured on that it's not going anywhere. And you can also make sure that your project is completed on time within their requirements. So in case of default, you're by the potential winner in failing to complete the development or in the procurement processes and so on, the mortgaged or the proportional IP rights will be transferred to the Ministry of Defense or whoever the concerned authority is. So yeah, any advance payments which are there, guarantees which are there, are to be released. Advance payment guarantees for advance payment are to be released before the completion of milestone 2. So milestone 2, what is that? So let's go into that. I'll explain like where we go into milestone 2 as well. That is usually the procurement processes. So some checks and balances against our raw material procurement has been set up by MOD. So if the startup is already involved in IDEX ecosystem, so that means you are aware of these processes. You have been a winner of some projects. And or else let's say you have completed this product design and it has been validated by some committees. Then also if your startup has invested time, that is more than 12 months, and has again the term, the skin in the game, then you could be, the procurement processes could be accelerated. The funding processes could be accelerated accordingly. And post procurement, that is before the milestone 2, that is the MOQ or the minimum order quantity procurement. There are checks and balances placed to minimize the impact of default. That is, many IDEX players, usually startups, sometimes unintentionally misquote the prices or cost, and they suffer damages when it comes to procurement of raw material for the implementation of that particular order. So again, they will bring in some checks and balances. There will be an evaluation to consider what to be done and what not to be done. So the payment also will be done to the IDEX winner DA to the cost incurred for the raw materials and the input resources. And all these terms will be agreed up by the CNC, that is the negotiation committee, and will be put in the terms of the contract. So one more important note to consider is, in case of default by the IDEX winner or by the development agency, post the payment, then that particular company is could be blacklisted and terminated by the procurement agency. So again, it is one has to remember that yes, we are dealing with innovation-based development. We are dealing with some advanced procurement processes and so on, complex procurement process and so on. But it is also important to note that it's not just about winning the project and having the award stuck on back of a wall, but it's also about getting it delivered and not defaulting on the milestone 2 particularly. And the another thing is, if there is any performance come warranty security, which is like in form of bank guarantee or some sort of bond, all these payments will be released. So, to be submitted before the release. Yes. For the intellectual property valuation, they have brought in some other processes. That is for the calculation of income. They brought in the income method. They brought in the market method of valuation to see what would be the actual price paid for the transfer of rights of a similar intellectual property. So I believe that is a very good process. Would give help in valuation of your product, or valuation of your startup against international markets. And the cost method, the value of an intellectual property. So what would be that? So all these methods are also being evaluated and will be implemented during the valuation of your intellectual property. This could in turn be used for mortgaging the intellectual property against the payments to be done by IDEX or for TDF and so on.
Bharat, there's a question.
Yes.
IP valuation is highly subjective. Can we recommend a criteria to make it objective?
At this point of time, the handbook brought in first and the IP evaluation, at least in this sort of stage. Yes, it is highly subjective. This is again to be dealt by the industrial bodies via to the MOD. Satyam Kushwaha, sir, you can add in. Is there?
We'll take it up later. We'll first continue the presentation.
Thank you. So also the valuation of the IP curtails the following information. So what is the need of the proposed challenges? So how urgent it is, how important it is, how it would strengthen our armed forces, what is the scope, what is the global competitive nature. So definitely this would help in benchmarking the IP to a certain extent. And what is the potential market for such product of technology? Reference to MPQ, that is the minimum pilot quantity as per the proposal. And what is the success rate? It could be a very high risk, so the success rate might be very low. And if successful, one could have a very high intellectual property valuation. So this has to be discussed with the particular IDEX HPSC committees. The most important thing, till now, I don't know how many IDEX winners or potential IDEX participants are here. The biggest and the most important amendment has been the MPQ, that is the minimum pilot order quantity. So if a entity completes the prototype development, then they're ensured to have an MPQ, that is so that they could ensure that there is a substantial procurement order from the MOD, and all your development and time effort are not just ending over there, but you're also seeing some fruitfulness in the form of business with the MOD. The MPQ also talks about spiral development. So it's not only having like a phase 1 development of a certain technology, but rather going to phase 2 or maybe bringing out a new technology altogether. For example, today you're working on, let's say, some thermal cameras for border-based surveillance. Those thermal cameras could be upgraded, in a spiral development approach by the said procurement agency, by the said development agency, to make it a drone-based thermal camera, or it could be it could be converted into a space-based thermal camera, and so on. So all these could come under the spiral development category. And such exploitation is again helped by the minimum pilot quantity procurement. Also, it is important to note in certain scenarios, your technology is not completely mature, but it is still viable for field deployment or exploitation. So the MPQ, this pilot order quantity, ensures that they are procured and they are being tested in field. They are being exploited in field. So you get that user feedback. You get some sort of business in one form or the other. So if one wants to go for spiral development, one wants to go for MPQ, what is the category? This is to be again determined by the specific service headquarters on the product compliance. So let's say once you win an IDEX project, you have a compliance matrix. So how compliant are you? Let's say you're only compliant up to 70%. So you're only fit for a certain part of the minimum pilot quantity procurement. So additional 20% compliance over stage 1. Let's say there is a stage 1 procurement completed. Now you have developed your product further. It is matured to a certain extent. You got some certifications from DGAQA, from DGQA, or so on. Now they will be like, okay, fine, let's go for the second part of exploitation or procurement process. In a case where you're 100% compliant with all the user requirements, then you're ready to go ahead for a bulk procurement. You need not even go for MPQ, you can rather directly jump into the bulk procurement. These are the advantages that have been recently brought in by the service headquarters. So even though your product is, let's say, not 100% ready, you can still start doing business by meeting those 70% or 80% of those critical criteria which have been set by the MOD. So again, before declaration of the IDEX winners, that is by the HPSC committee and so on, they are to provide the IDEX or TDF teams, as well as along with the development agencies, they are to provide a plan for pilot procurement. They are to state what would be the minimum pilot order quantity. The MPQ again stated, It's not for operational requirements and deployment. Rather, it is for field exploitation to help you assess the product, to let the users gain some experience, as well as you have the user feedback to improve and improvise your product further. Again, it shall not be restricted to a certain order quantity, as it is not considered as a repeat order. There is a higher chance that you might get repeat orders, but it would be mostly in the form of bulk procurement. So another useful item is they could use only the preliminary service qualitative requirements. That is, for example, let's say there is some product radar. The radar is to operate tentatively from -10 to 55 degrees, and it's still tentative, but you can still go ahead and try to build something within that range. Later, they might come up with the service qualitative requirements stating that the performance has to be not tentatively -10 to 55, but rather it has to be from -12 to 57 degrees, something more concrete. But you still have the windows to start your development and proceed ahead. You need not wait till the SQRs are finalized. And these SQRs could be finalized based on your spiral development process. So the services requirements are basically revolving around on how you would be developing the product. So you have the requirements, which are in the form of compliance document, and as well as you have your own trials, which would help in forming the SQRs. I believe I had a question on how we could reduce the timeline. Well, I do not have the power to reduce the timeline, but I could share the good news that this particular contract signing procedure, at least from acceptance of necessity to the contract signing stage, has been reduced from 22 weeks to 14 weeks. So this is a very good advantage, I would say. So this is one of the new amendments that has been done. So, and again, I would state, in order to help them move things faster, we have to run even more faster as development agencies. So yeah, one more aspect is that. So let's say you have developed a IDEX under IDEX of the army, you have developed a radar. Now this radar, without any trials, upon successful completion, without any trials, could be procured by Navy, Air Force, or any other agencies. There is no need to go for SSCT, that is single stage composite trials. These are exempted. So there has been certain revisions in the advance payments during procurement of raw materials and essential raw input resources, again, as stated earlier. The most important statement, I would say, so the procurement contract shall not mention the instances as at which the quantity of raw materials which payment for. So the payment or the trigger for payment will only be done only if only an invoice for the amount calculated is provided by some sort of auditor of your firm or for this particular product. For software projects, at least they have a method to utilize the cost of the manpower. So I would say this could be one of the methods you could use even for AI potentially. Another important aspect is so 15% of the base contract value is released as an advance payment from within 21 days of execution of contract. So you could plan and your product development stage accordingly. This is also a very useful input. The relaxation. So there is a relaxation now in terms of bond guarantee. Before, one has to place a lot of bank guarantees and bond guarantees. So they brought in certain relaxations for startups and MSMEs. As per the GFR, that is 3% at present, or the minimum rate. It could be revised in form of insurance again and again. So this is relaxed. And again, in case of startups, liquidated damages. So you fail to comply with certain items. So you can avail 2 extensions of 6 months. That is almost a year uh, to justify why you had to face such delays or whatever, liquidated damages are there. And you can also potentially get the time to correct all these issues. The star slide of the day is that the new amendments allow the IDEX or the TDF projects to transition into a Make One project. So you have, let's say you have developed again, a telescope for ground-based purposes. Now they see a lot of potential that it could be enhanced and it could be improvised to a space-based telescope. So they have the criteria to move it into a Make One project. So again, your funding still comes from MOD, and it could be met accordingly. Another aspect is once your IDEX project moves into Make One, the relevant successful IDEX winners will be directly issued the RFP. So you need not go through all those, let's say in the 19, you need not go through all the 10 stages at the start, rather directly jump into the RFP. But again, post the issue of RFP, one has to follow the same procedure as per the Make One category listed over there. Another aspect is that there has been a significant relaxation for startups in Make projects. What are these relaxations? One, all they need is a registration. That is, any startup registered with DPIIT having the startup certificate. That is the only requirement for the financial eligibility. They need not provide any credit rating, profitability, net worth. So, for example, if there is an SME, it would require a BBB plus rating. Very difficult to gain for a startup. Net worth, it should be, they have like 3 or 4 different requirements for the net worth. So again, that would be very difficult for a startup to show on. You have the technical eligibility. So if they would be asking, have you done like complex integration projects in the past? So usually for startups, it's not possible and it has been exempted accordingly. Applies for domain specific criteria. So do you have domain-based experience, especially for aerospace projects? One might be asking like, have you integrated a full spacecraft? Have you built telescopes? Have you done that? So startups again could get the required exemption for the domain-specific criteria or experience. Thank you, Jai Hind. So I would try to keep short, and I tried my best to explain whatever I could within my knowledge. And if there are any questions, I'm available right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Bharat, for a very informative presentation. I'm sure that many of us would have learned a lot from the same.
Thank you, sir.
May I now open the floor for all the participants to ask their questions. My request to all the participants will be to keep the questions focused on the DAP aspects, the amendment aspects, and not the core DAP aspects as of now. Further, if there are any refinements or recommendations for the new DAP, which is probably being framed, I'll request all of you to consider sharing your inputs to ISpA. We shall consolidate the same and run it through our members who have the right domain expertise, and thereafter we'll share it with MOD. So I now leave the floor open for the members to ask their questions. My request is keep the questions one by one. Ashish from my team will coordinate the questions. Thank you.
Bharat, one of the questions which came was, can we go back to the release of funding and mortgaging of IP?
Okay. Mortgage of proportional rights on IP. Yes.
There was nothing added to it. It just said, can we go back to the release of funding and mortgaging of IP? It was, I think, clubbed with the question that IP valuation is subjective and can we recommend a criteria to make it objective? I think you answered it.
Yeah, I mean, the IP valuation of the IP and the methods of calculation, the recommendations can be shared to ISpA, and we could all take it up with MOD. The advantage that they have recently brought in is that upon calculations of your intellectual property, one could, let's say if it is a startup, they will not have the money to put it in bank guarantees. They would rather need those funds to actually run their operations. So what do? You can leverage your intellectual property for that particular project and provide this as a mortgage against the advance payment, which will be done by the Ministry of Defense or the Indian government. That's the advantage. That is a new advantage which has been brought out recently. And in case the potential development agency fails to deliver, let's say the minimum pilot quantity order or any aspect of the procurement, or it has come, the development has been frozen in middle, whatever intellectual property that has been generated will be with the authorities of IDEX, PDF, or MOD, I would say. Yes.
Yeah. Next question. Who is termed as a statutory auditor?
So it could be one of the CAs, appointed CAs for complex make projects. I heard that they will be sending in CAG. So again, depends on a case-to-case basis. I have to check up and come back.
Yeah. Next question. How does the Make 3 criteria differ from Make 1 or Make 2?
So in Make 1 and Make 2, you have the Indian industries leading the projects. Indian industries are the primes, and all that technology developed would be by an Indian company whose complete ownership lies in India. Whereas in Make 3, the MOD allows a foreign company to team up with an Indian industry and deliver the required project. So in Make 3, what happens is that, let's say the Ministry of Defense or the service headquarters would be giving that these are the PSQRs for the project. So taking these PSQRs, the foreign company, which has teamed up with the Indian company, will set up the production facility in India, will start producing the items which are to be consumed by the MOD. Subsequently, it will be transferring all the technology and building capability via its Indian partner. That is the intent here. This is mostly applicable for very complex technology. Let's say we're talking about submarines, or you're talking about something like a launch vehicle or something of that aspect. But till date, the only Make 3 that has come up, best of my knowledge is like around 5 different missile systems. It is available on the Make in India website if someone is interested.
Sir, if I may just qualify a little more, Make 3 is basically for import substitutions for equipment which are already within the services. Equipment whichever is already existing, for that import substitution, if industry wants to do, then Make 3 will be applicable.
Sure.
Yeah. Next question is by Ms. Tuti Gupta. Given rise in new technologies, there's also need of consultative engagements to assess and understand adoption strategies. How can service companies participate in TD and IDEX other programs?
I would ask Satyam sir to actually answer this more relevant. Yeah. Ashish, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, given the rise in new technologies, there's also need of consultative engagements to assess and understand adoption strategies. How can service companies participate in TD and IDEX and other programs?
A very relevant question indeed. Generally earlier the the kind of innovation challenges and all were very limited in number. So it could be handled by probably what existed as the human resource. But now the number of the kind of challenges are much more complex, higher in number, have time sensitivity, and also need domain expertise to be able to interpret them, understand them, and to handhold the industry. So given that, I think there definitely is a huge requirement for having a consulting services which can provide domain-related understanding to the MOD, the IDEX, and any other agency which is involved in space-related work in India. Yes, what will be important to ensure is that the neutrality of these agencies, so that there are no underhand influences, and probably MOD would be the best to kind of come out with some standards on the same of impaneling such service companies as is done by other departments in Government of India. And I'm sure that such a step would be accelerating the various processes that are at hand, and also bring more technical understanding in the ecosystem. We will definitely like to include this part as part of our recommendations for the DAP. In fact, we have been talking about it with the MOD to have a pool of experts who have domain expertise to strengthen the hands of IDEX and MOD departments and the services. So that is how I would answer this question. And thank you for that question.
Are there any more questions? You can raise your hand or put your questions in the chat. Thank you. Yeah, there's a question, Bharat. Are there any details as how the benchmarking committee determines the raw material and labor costs?
So usually they would be getting these sort of costs, like the preliminary cost from the potential DAs during the HPSC time in form of budget and a budgetal breakdown. That is one aspect, and in detail on how they would be doing it usually depends on case-to-case basis. And even the exact method of raw material costing or the labor cost by the BMC and how it would break down, this is not clearly listed as of now in DAP. If it is there, I will check and revert back. Yeah. Yes, Ash.
Okay. Are there any more questions?
One thing I can add to the last statement is whatever raw material or labor cost one would be putting, these all would be vetted by a statutory auditor or by a independent body or by the MOD itself.
Thank you, Bharat. We also have the honor of having Air Marshal V.R. Krishna, former CISC here. Sir, would you like to make some comments regarding the same?
So I'm muted, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the maximum questions were, of course, from me. These are all practical questions based on experience, and these are the challenges we are going to face in future. If we don't find answers to them, then we'll hit roadblocks. Timeline looks very optimistic, but please don't go by that, because we know where the roadblocks are. And how do we overcome them? Benchmarking sounds very simple. That's where the things go sour. Yeah, just a piece of advice. So if we can get clarity on these issues, maybe we can ask ISpA to take it up formally on these issues of AI, your IP evaluation, because DRDO also doesn't know how to deal with IP evaluation. They are struggling with it. If they can't do, and they are the people in the HPC who will determine it then. So these are the challenges which we have. I'm sure we need to get answers, and if you can get it faster, then it will help the entire community as such.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a nice presentation, Bharat. All the best.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. No wonder I was thinking, like, who is this person really asking the tough questions? Now I can make it. I understand from where it comes from. Thank you so much, sir.
Bharat, there's Abhishek Begawadi from Astrom. I believe he wants you to revisit the slide of relaxation and revision in performance security contract.
I will do one thing. I will. I mean, the presentation is with ISpA, so you can broadcast it accordingly.
No, he wants to confirm something, and then he'll ask a follow-up question based on that. If you can flash it from your end.
Yeah, sure. This is on. Just a minute. Security. Okay. Is this it? Ashish, yeah, we have it here.
Yeah, I'm waiting on from Abhishek to
No problem.
ask the question. Yeah.
Ashish, we have anything?
Hi, thanks.
Okay. All right, Satyam sir.
Hi, sorry, we had a power failure here, so the internet went off. Murphy's law is so very appropriate when everything is going good. You have Lord Murphy to make his presence felt. So, are there any more questions? Oh, yeah. So, since we don't have any questions here, we will now. I'd like to just thank Bharat for his fantastic presentation and for the collaborative efforts of all for joining us, asking good questions. And thank you to M. Marshal B. R. Krishna, sir, for triggering our minds. Really grateful to you, sir, for that. And I can and we'll be happy to take down their suggestions and integrate them into a document and then send it to MOD. Thank you so much. And thank you, Bharat, once again for
Thank you, sir.
your great effort. Deeply appreciated.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
With that, I'd like to request all members to sign off. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.